Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Challenger Network News. I'm Brandon Bichler, and it's Friday again, and here we are today with Carrie Osman, founder and CEO of Cruxy & Company. Hey, Carrie, how you doing?
Hey, how are you? Lovely
Great.
to see you.
Love to see you as well. So what are we talking about this week? Well, we're going to talk about why is it that as most companies grow in size, their standards slowly shift to just being good enough, where a 6 or a 7 out of 10 tends to become the norm rather than that 9 or 10 out of 10 that you started the company with. And so we're going to just discuss why is it critical for teams to maintain and even increase their quality bar as they grow. Is that even possible? Carrie, that's what we're going to discuss today. Are you up for this?
I am so up for this. It is unbelievable. And I also don't have the answer. So if anyone does, I suggest you get in the live chat and we
Absolutely
start hammering backwards and forth because, yeah, I mean, absolutely, you know, I spend my life torn between thinking that you should continue to uphold a 9 because that's why I started the company. I think when I met Stephen at Elixir, it was a kind of, you know, and you as well, Brandon, it was just this complete meeting of the minds in terms of like you start a consultancy to do things differently because the incumbents are, in our view, of course we would say this, but they're mediocre. They deliver deck. It doesn't go anywhere. The number doesn't shift. They don't tie themselves to the result. So you believe in that 9 and you know that that means you need to do things differently and be brutal. And, you know, every follow-up's got to be a 9 and you've got to make sure every proposal's about them and it's not a, you know, it's not a template and all of these things. And then as I've tried to grow the company and, you know, with some learnings along the way and some successes and less so, we're still pretty small compared to you guys, but it's so hard. It's so hard to not end up in this place where you're just kind of, oh my God, am I being a psycho? As I said, just as we were joining, I was like, you know, is the follow-up going to this client? No response. Oh my God, it's now 9 p.m. at night. The follow-up needs to go. Do I become the crazy lady CEO that everyone thinks all women are anyway? Like, where do I find that balance? And I just find it really, really hard, to be honest. So I am excited to spend a few minutes cantering through it on this lovely, beautiful and bright Friday.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's the challenge, right? You form a small team at the beginning, and you that founding team sets that vision, that ethos, that standard for quality. That's something different that we're going to be. That's going to really disrupt the market. And in the early years, you know, quality and impact that you make are literally life and death for the company. Like you said, every follow-up email, everything you do, every interaction is establishing who you are, your own very identity. But as time goes on and the identity gets set and more people come into it, I feel that people start to almost rely on the things that you've built, the brands, the reputation, the number of case studies, the things you've done before, and it almost becomes a crutch to people. And we've seen that, you know, people who come from bigger organizations, they rely on the logo that's on their business card. There's something there. And I guess one challenge is, does it have to be that way? Do you think it has to be that way as companies grow?
I don't think it does. I was looking at kind of some research before the call, as you would expect, you know, got to keep those standards up.
Standards.
But the problem is that if you look at all the names, you know, Jeff, Bezos, Jobs, you know, you look at everyone that you think of as achieving and having these really high standards, and they do get pretty vilified for it, to be honest. I mean, I was reading quite a few articles and it's kind of, you know, all the quotes of, it's not easy to work here, you've got to work long, hard and smart, and at Amazon you can't be 2 of the 3, or, you know, that famous quote. And the, you know, nobody changes the world working less than 40 hours. You know, you can't change the world if you're working 40 hours a week. I guess what I find very difficult personally, and it's probably just a crazy, you know, as I said, these demons that we all have in our little voice in our head, but is something inside you accepts everyone has a different way of doing things. You bring people in because you want to learn and grow with them, and you want the company to transform as it kind of absorbs that amazing knowledge and different ways of doing things people bring. But I guess my kind of business partner and I talk a lot about, like, what are the things we want to be unreasonable about, that we almost want someone to kind of roll their eyes and be like, oh, for God's sake, you know, like every single proposal to me has to be different and bespoke. And if you haven't researched that company for 2-3 hours, let alone the phone calls, but also bespoke data, you don't understand them well enough to help them. And as a consultant, your only job is to be the doctor. So if you don't care enough to ask them or look them up or understand anything about them in the industry, you lose the right to do the amazing job that we get to do, which is to advise, as you guys do, advise amazing, leaders all around the world. We do tech, you guys do, I know, lots of different industries and segments.
Yeah.
I guess what I find difficult is, how do you strike that balance? Everyone I talk to, it seems to be about striking the balance between being brutal, unreasonable, demanding, and then we get in the brackets narcissistic leader.
Right.
Every time you look up those words, it's like, narcissistic leader with no emotional intelligence. Like, no, I've met, Stephen at Elixir, seems a really emotionally intelligent person, but who would be unrelenting on standards.
Yeah, so absolutely.
Where is that balance? You tell me, Brandon.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that posture of being unreasonable about things that really matter, I think, is key. Is absolutely key. So we certainly subscribe to that. It sounds like, I know you do from our chats, and I think it's key. I think one of the things that we saw as you grow is, how does it not only become just the CEO or just the founder that lives and breathes that every day? How can it be everyone in the company? And I remember a pivotal moment. We were actually, Steve and I were talking about it the other day, about he put up and there's even a post on LinkedIn. So he said the difference between an entrepreneur and an employee. And I remember it was very stark. It was very jolting as even I read it, coming with my background and thinking I was a part of this entrepreneurial firm. I related to a lot of the bullets on the employee side, and actually made me question my own behavior sometimes. And I thought it was really good, because it was like, this is how we all need to be. Entrepreneur doesn't just mean someone that founded a company. There is a behavior, there's an attitude, there's an ownership mindset that all of us have with every relationship we hold, with every deliverable we produce, with everything we do, every interaction. That's what we are. And I think that was the start of really kind of taking that culture from a small group of people to a wider group of people. At least that's something that we did.
Yeah, I love that. I think I was thinking about, is it self-imposed standards? I kind of think, like COVID's a great example. You must have joined loads of calls, as I have, with people who look like they haven't had a shower, let alone, and I know everyone's in different circumstances with homeschooling and everything. But I guess I kind of think, but at what moment does it all of a sudden slip? Because the minute that you say it's okay that the thank you note didn't go to the client on the day of the meeting, and it's okay that you said you'd get them you get them a write-up in 48 hours, but it's okay that it's 72 because it's a weekend and it's your birthday and your brother's mother's dog had a problem, whatever. That's actually your own mother, isn't it? I got that wrong. So, the minute that you almost let those things go, we were talking about the fact that it just feels like a snowball effect. The minute that the thank you note doesn't go, it's almost like, oh, well, the proposal's late and we didn't make it bespoke and it's not got their logo on, but that's all right. And there's no industry statistics that are relevant to them. But you know what? We're in a rush. We're busy. We've got loads on. And it's like, I think part of me thinks that you have to be really, really precise about these small things, but that almost denote the standard. Like, I used to be really fussy, and I still am. Like, people in my team who are watching this are just going to be laughing so much. The way that you pour water in a meeting, I know this is so stupid, but it's like, you pour the client first and then yourself, and obviously you do yourself last. And like the coffee and the way the coffee comes in a mug, and like, how do you, and all of these things, they seem so minor, so, insignificant.
But you can apply, what do they do in the service industry, right? It's the same thing. The example you're talking about is exactly when you have a great restaurant experience, it feels special, it feels different. And we can apply that, I think, to service companies like our own. We can apply that to product companies. We can apply that to technology companies, software companies, I believe. I think every interaction really matters. And I think that those little things are the building blocks to the standard. By the way, I want to encourage people to join us in the debate here a little bit. So you can just write a comment. We'll see you. We'll see the comment come through, and I'll try to either answer your question or bring up your point of view as well. If you want to join in, please do.
Yeah, super keen to hear how other people deal with this. Am I just this crazy person? I think one of the things I was thinking about as well was just that people seem to think it's about focus. They seem to think that we should be focusing on the 3 really big things that we've got to achieve or do. And these are the small things. I think it's a mindset thing. You kind of think we're focusing on this massive big KPI. We've got to get this client over the line, or we've got to do a great job on the document. That doesn't matter. It's almost like, I don't think people are thinking I'm letting the standard slip. I think they're thinking I'm prioritizing, this word. Well, I've prioritized that over that this week. Okay, but can we prioritize that over that? Or do we need to do both? Question. I don't know. What do you think? How much is this about people think that they're prioritizing? I'm doing my 3 really big things that are going to really shift, the landscape or the result. And therefore they almost start to detach smaller things.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, because we all have, more things in our to-do list than we can actually physically get done. So, everyone has to look at it and make choices every single day. But how does that choice making slip into, these things that have always been really important to me, I'm gonna now let that slip away. And I think that it's a great perspective. If it's the little things that matter, and I think it does, I think those are the things that matter. They almost build up to the big objectives, actually. We could almost use it as an excuse. It's like, well, I was prioritizing something else, or we had a big opportunity or a big deal on, so I let these other 3 things kind of, move to next week. That is a dangerous zone. And as a small business owner, and we know that, right? Everything matters. Like every single day, you've got to be relentless all the time. And so I liked what you said, proud to be unreasonable about things. I actually think that's absolutely fair. And if you look at the companies that are high performing, those are the ones that have that mindset.
There's this great, I don't know, it's a very old book now, but Jim Collins' Good to Great. And he kind of says, the minute that you accept good, you just become good enough. Yeah. Because what you tell yourself, you don't uphold your own standards. And I think the thing that's very interesting is, how do we look to the internal critic that we all have, as I said, the little voice? And, we all make mistakes, right? I sent a document to someone yesterday. There was an error in it. I felt physically sick and then wanted to kill myself, but whatever. I got through it. But, I just sent a note saying, I'm so sorry, nothing really to say here other than rookie mistake, whatever. But it's almost helping people to see, of course, these things happen, of course, we're all human. We all get things wrong and do them. But it's as long as you still have that feeling that's like, oh my God, I can't believe that. Let me do anything I can to fix it. And I think that comes from this self-critic. And if you think about your own self-imposed standards, if you look to someone else to set the standard for you, the client is always in our world, the client is never going to tell you what they want. They tell you what they want to achieve, and then it's our job to kind of find the right way to help them achieve that. They're never going to say, oh no, that's not good enough. They'll just not work with you again. So if someone's looking for external validation all the time of a standard, you're never going to get it. Because no one ever says, of course I stay at the Connaught and pay £800 a night because of these silly small things, like they remember my dog's name, or that's not me, but I'm thinking of these people. Sure. And they remember who I am and they know my favorite drink or whatever. They're just all the small things that add up and make that whole experience worthwhile. So when they're engaging with a consultant, I think one of the things we have to help people understand, all of us as leaders, is that standard has to be self-imposed. It's not an externally driven thing. No one is going to tell you that you weren't good enough, because not good enough is like, a 4 out of 10. That's really bad. A 6, no one moans about a 6. We live in a world of 6. We accept 6 being, work out a couple of times a week. Yeah, eat average food, whatever. So if we want to be shifting the world, moving it forward, advising people on how they can change their whole world in terms of, the standards they uphold and the way that they ultimately do business, we have to be a 9. But that standard has to be imposed by our own internal voice, not someone else is never going to demand that of us. Absolutely. And we just had a question come in that I think is a really good one to point out from Joy. Curious, is it about who you hire to get those detail individuals? Thinking we need the growth mindset focused on the big picture. So the focus on hiring, I think, is a key one. So one of the things that we do at Elixir is, when we're interviewing anyone,
we're not just asking, will they fit in? Will they meet the quality bar of our existing team? We're constantly thinking, will they actually raise the bar? And Steve has been great to talk about this. He's like, look, if we're not raising the bar, then we're lowering it by default all the time. So we have to ask that question. And so every single person that I hire, I'm thinking, is this person going to blow away, half the team that we have today? Is this person, if it's a similar level to me, is this person better than me? I want to find that person that's going to blow me out of the water and do a 10 times better job than I'll do. There's something about that. I think it's maybe akin to building like a championship sports team.
Yeah.
In a way. Like there's no second place. Like there's no second best. Like you strive and you work. And yes, maybe someone makes a mistake on the pitch, but you team up and you support. And it's not just about talent, as we've all seen in sports. It's about behavior and attitude and mindset and caring and wanting it. And I think those values are what we're looking for, at least.
I think Joy is right. I think the thing that's really difficult, though, because I agree, growth mindset, love growth versus fixed mindset and all of this. Yeah. Literally spend hours just talking about all of this with you guys. But I think what's really hard is you go for people who are detail orientated, thinking, well, they've got high standards, they're all over the detail. Then they miss the bigger picture. You go for someone bigger picture because you think the role's more suited to that. And you think, oh, maybe they don't get the standards because of the detail. I've worked with people who are a big mix of detail, not MBTI profiles, lots of different things. And I think the standard you uphold is something about what you're willing to accept as an individual. Am I the kind of person who gets dressed, because I want to, but I go to the gym or I do something, not because someone's watching or because I'm being judged or because society says something about me, but because that's what I want. And then I guess what's interesting about that is, how do you actually then measure for that standard in the hiring process? I mean, I've been known to literally just, completely switch off because someone presents their case study on an unbranded, and it's like, but we didn't send them template. I'm like, you don't have to send someone a template. I've had an intern come to a meeting with me with everything on Cruxy branded, really neatly, all printed off. Like, you don't need to be smart to know that that's what good enough looks like.
Right.
I can't be bothered. Don't care if you're the smartest person in the world. You are willing to present yourself in a way that is unacceptable to me. But I know that sounds very brutal, but I guess it's how do you at Elixir look for that? How do you actually see that standard?
Yeah, and I think we definitely overinvest in recruiting. So there are more interviews, there are more, investigations. We spend more time. We look at like hundreds of people for a single role and take one. So, that's kind of what it takes. And does it take 10 times more time recruiting than probably other firms take? Yes. And that's the choice that we have to make.
There are a couple of things through recruiting, and I've made loads of mistakes. I've got lots of learnings on this. Sure. Learnings isn't even a word, Carrie, come on. But, I've learned a lot. One of them is, if someone doesn't send a thank you note, never hire them. And that is, they don't even need to ask for your email. And I've had so many people be like, but you didn't, they didn't ask for your email and we didn't give them the email. It's like, you can find an email, you can do it on LinkedIn. If someone doesn't send a thank you note, I just think that's just awful. And they always end up being people that just don't send thank you notes, which means they're people that think that's okay. Take someone's time, don't say thank you for it. And the other thing is, when you say to them in the interview, like, oh, that's really interesting, right at the end, we've finished. And you just say, oh, what was the piece that we, they say, oh, I read some articles. You're like, oh, what was the one you liked? And if they know, then they've read about the company. Right. And as soon as they start having to ask the questions, you just think, would I be happy with someone going to a prospect meeting not having looked that up? Because if I'm prospecting for myself in an interview, that's what I'm doing. I'm having a sales meeting for myself. Yeah. There are a couple of tips we've found quite useful, but I mean, we're a tiny team, so we don't have the level of hiring that you guys obviously have experience in.
Yeah, but honestly, similar mindset, certainly. I think we have time for one more question, and then this is the way. These are pretty short episodes, so a couple of things. We can continue this on future episodes, and after this, we'd love to engage with you in the comments, and we'll definitely do that if we're not able to get to everyone's questions. I love what Jonathan's just written. If you look over the comments, is it possible that the things that migrate to standards across time, i.e. the granular elements of historical success, they lose their efficacy when they become standardized? And so colleagues that weren't part of the original experience may not feel the passion of the nuances. So there is a question about, if that becomes a standard, does it almost become standardized and therefore it loses its, I don't know. Do you lose the creativity or the passion or the same things that the early team, as they were creating the vision and doing the things? Does it become almost like, well, I'm cranking the handle. Yes, I have to send said thank you note, you know?
Yeah, which is the whole point. Like, that's just not the point, is it? It's the point.
Exactly.
So I guess one of the things that I've heard a number of people talk about, a coach who's great, Johnny Sell, the Olympic rower, and a great professional coach. And he talks a lot about, like, as you did, Brandon, professional sport, and the example of, you know, you don't say that you train in this way and you get up and train at 5 a.m. in that way in the last year up to the Olympics. It's like, we know that's what you need to do to win. We know we have to shave off however many seconds. And that if you break that down over 4 years and you break that down by day, week by week, that's what it's going to take. It's not a, you know, oh yeah, that's the standard we uphold, off we go. It needs to be like, do you believe? And that's what I think matters. I mean, Jonathan's question is really pertinent, but it's like, that's what I mean about, do you send a thank you note after an interview? Because it's like, do you believe this is something that you as a human being think matters? Because if you don't think it matters, trust me, I've tried. I've had people where I've thought, you're so amazing, I'll just help you with the cookie crumbs.
Right.
Here are some of the things you can do to get there. And then they're just like, I just don't really get why you even do that. And you end up in this circular, you know, the ultimate circular, like, but I think it might be good if you did this because we try to uphold this standard. And then they kind of roll their eyes at you thinking you're crazy. And then you loop back to them forgetting, because obviously we all forget the things we don't really care about. We all forget lots of things anyway, but particularly the things we don't buy into. So I guess that's where I come back to it being something that has to be innate. You have to be the person who thinks those things matter. Of course, our job is to help connect the dots and show, you know, the number of times we have people say, you guys are so responsive and so on it, and it makes a massive difference. And we all noticed it. And we like then share that with everyone on the team to be like, forward email to everyone.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we're going to wrap it up there for today. So as I mentioned, this is just a first foray into this topic. I'd love to have you on again, Carrie, and maybe we can have an extended chat about this. And for those who have written your question and comments down below, we will stay on and have a debate and discussion with you there. So Carrie, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much.
As always.
My only recommendation is that it will make the standard slip, and it will also make my language slip significantly. But next time we should do this with wine.
We should do it with wine.
Even a big wine fan, so we'll get a South African wine list at the ready, and we'll go for it.
Brilliant. Sounds great. Carrie, thanks again. And thanks for all of you for joining us for another edition of Challenger Network News. And we'll see you next week with our next topic. Thanks again and have a great week.